Welcome to Kent Hance, the best storyteller in Texas podcast. We start every episode with a saying of the day.
Saying of the day comes from a friend of mine, Wes Kitley, the head track coach at Texas Tech, who's won 2 national championships in the last 6 years. And he says, to break a record, you first must believe that you can. And with that, I want to talk about, May the 6th in 1954, when Roger Bannister broke the record of a 4-minute mile, less than four minutes. He's always thought that no one could run a mile in less than 4 minutes. And for 10 years, it had been stuck at 4:01, something like that, and nobody could break it. And he set about to break it and was able to do so. He was a medical student in England, and he ran at Oxford. And at Oxford, they had a cinder track, and he had 2 pacers. He had one guy pace him the first 2 laps, and one guy pace the next 2 laps. And so it's a windy day and cool day, and that he just did it, and there were 3,000 people there at his track meet, but that was one race they were looking forward to.
Wasn't it one of those things where medical professionals all said that the human body can't do it?
Yeah, they said that, it's too much of a tax on the human body, was what the researchers said. And that in saying so and in making that comment, people believed it. They just can't break that. And you can't push the human body that far. And I noticed that since that happened, over 1,700 people have run less than a 4-minute mile. And so, I mean, that's huge.
That's the power of believing it can be done.
Yeah, believing it can be done and being able to do it. Bannister went on, he was a medical student, and he went on to be a neurologist and was very noted, very smart, and was a great doctor. He
reminds me of one of your sayings that you say at commencement. And Roger Bannister didn't dream little dreams.
Yeah, he didn't. This is graduation time, and I'm going to be, I spoke at Lubbock Christian. I've got some other places, and when I talk to the graduates, one of the things I always say to them is what I used to say at graduation at Texas Tech: dream no little dreams. And you have to think big. Now you have to execute. You can sit around and dream all day and nothing's going to happen. I always think back to Coach Darrell Royal said, luck never hit a guy sitting in the shade. If you're just sitting in the shade waiting for a dream to come true, it's not going to happen. You got to be out there moving around
and do the work.
Do the work, put in the time. And that's what Roger Bannister did. We used to go visit my Aunt Cletha and her husband, Uncle Scooter George, and they took Life magazine, and we didn't take Life magazine. And that was a big deal then, whoever got to be on the cover of Life magazine. And they had Roger Bannister on the cover of Life magazine. I remember I was 11 years old when he broke that record, and I read every word in that article, just thinking, wow, how did he do that? And that's, people talked about it for a long time. Then, like 40-something days later, a little over a month later, somebody else broke it.
That's the amazing part, isn't it? That once the wall was knocked down,
they were on it, and 46 days, and John Landry ran a 3:57.9 in England.
Wow!
And so he knocked 2 more seconds off of it, and that's just unbelievable that it would stay that long, and then once it fell, it started falling pretty fast. And I think Bannister, he planned and thought about it, had pacers, he had everything set up just right, and it happened. And it did make worldwide news. But I remember at Life magazine, I got to my aunt's and immediately asked her where her Life magazine was. She told me, and I went in there. And you just it was huge. And we talked about it at school and
I remember
things like that.
I think Roger Bannister went on to be knighted.
Yes, he did.
Crown. Yeah,
he did. We had a guy in Dimmitt when I was growing up named Tuffy Cal. Just your name's Tuffy. I don't know what his. I think it may have been James, and he won state. What was called the 880, which is 800 meters now, but he won state as a sophomore, junior, senior, and then he went on to West Texas State and ran track. And he was a pretty good football player, but he really excelled in track. And he was a kid that really believed he could do it, and worked at it really hard. I mean, sprint for 800 yards, 880 yards, or 800 meters. I mean, that takes a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Most of those people, I mean, it is a sprint in this day and even in the mile. They take off fast, and they don't just poke around. They pick them up, lay them down.
Coach at Texas Tech has a heck of a program.
Yeah, he does. He's really done well. He's originally from rural Texas, and I ought to get him on here sometime.
Yeah.
And he had a kid. One time he came to me and was having problems getting a kid in from Nigeria, and he was a cross-country runner. And we finally figured out what the problem was, and we got him in. He was having visa issues, and he was qualified educationally. But he mostly has American runners and performers, but he also has international people. And but he grew up in rural Texas, and that he and Art Browse played high school football together and ran track together.
Wow.
Both from rural Texas. And for a little town to produce two great coaches like that is pretty phenomenal. One thing that President Trump did last week, he announced a commission to look into the NIL issue, football. And it's going to be headed up by Nick Saban and Texas Tech Chairman of the Board of Regents, Cody Campbell. And that Cody Campbell is a guy that played football at Texas Tech. He was a National Merit Scholar. There's not a lot of National Merit Scholars that play college football at any level. But he got invited to visit Dartmouth and Yale and Stanford and Duke and Texas Tech. And he wanted the most academic challenge, so he went to Texas Tech. That's what I tell people. And they always get a good laugh out of that compared to those other schools. But he did, and he was an all-conference tackle. And then he played for the Indianapolis Colts. And since then, he and his best friend from high school, John Sellers, they started an oil company called Double Eagle. And both of them were Canyon Eagles. So that's the reason they named it Double Eagle. And they've built it up and sold it, built it up and sold it again, and built it up. I think they've sold 3 times. Last was for $4 billion to Pioneer, and then became Exxon. And he's been a big supporter of Trump's, in that Trump, appointed him to head up that commission to see what to do.
That's what I was wondering. What are they going to look into? What are they? I know Nick Saban's not a big fan.
No, he's not. And they're going to look in, how much money, how many schools can do this? Sonny Cumbie is the coach at Louisiana Tech, and he doesn't have the money the University of Texas has. He's not going to spend $20-30 million. He'd be lucky to spend $200,000 or $300,000. And so it throws it kind of out of balance. And I think they're going to try to come up with some ways that they can compensate the players and not get in a deal where they just have a lot of problems. They have an agreement, a settlement, and a lawsuit where they were going to pay a certain amount of money, and that I think it's $22 million that would be going. And some of the schools didn't sign the settlement. Kansas State didn't. They said, we just don't have it. We're not going to agree to pay out something we do, which I thought was smart. But it won't go on forever. You can still give NIL money, even though you're giving them part of the proceeds of the sports. The sports it doesn't make any money unless it's football, and it has to be a Power 5 conference where they get a lot of money, and or it has to be some basketball, and some women's basketball will make money, some men's basketball will make money, but other than that, in football, golf, a bunch of people are not going to go pay to watch somebody play golf in college or tennis or those what are referred to as Olympic sports. It's they have to share in the revenue, so it makes it more difficult for the football people. If football was just paying football, they'd pay out a lot, but that's not the way it works.
Chancellor, I know you just got back from Mar-a-Lago, and I think our audience would love to know all about your trip, what you can tell us, what you can't.
Well, I just had a good visit. The Republican National Committee, they had some of their people there, and I went down and visited, and you go through a line and you get your picture made of the president, and you have a short period of time to say anything, and he had been campaigning a lot, and I say campaigning. He had been to Michigan. He had a town hall meeting in Michigan on Tuesday or Wednesday. Then on Thursday, he had been in Alabama to speak at graduation, and that was Friday night. And I thought he looked a little tired, but he got up there and talked 45 minutes. It didn't faze him. He has a high level of energy. And whether people like him or dislike him or his policies, he is a guy that's going to give you a lot of reasons to like him and a lot of reasons maybe to dislike him. And if you look at what he's done in his first 100 days, he's done a lot. I mean, they have been real active. They've been aggressive. My motto to the employees at Texas Tech when I was chancellor was push, push, push. Because in government and higher education, if you don't push, if you figure out what your goals are, what can we do? And I think on figuring out goals, is it understandable? Don't make it complicated. And that, my goal at Texas Tech, one of my goals, we were at 26,000 students. I wanted to go to 40,000 by 2020. And you tell people that, well, they understand that. And we raised our standards, and we got to, they're at 41,000 now. But we got to the 40,000. It's an understandable goal. Trump, and he ran on this, secure the border. And so he's finishing the wall, and he's got people there, and they don't let people in. And I think that, Biden's people that were advising him, Obama, he shipped a lot of people back.
Over 3 million.
Yeah, and so did Clinton, and so did Bush. And but Obama's, I think his advisors thought the more people we let in 10 or 15 years, they'll be able to vote, and they'll vote for us.
You think Biden's advisors said that?
I think Biden's people, that's the reason they were letting them in. Just open the floodgates, and that they saw them as potential voters. Well, you got to be careful when you do something in politics. It may come around and bite you. Harry Reid on decreasing the number of votes you had to have to get confirmed to the Supreme Court. And the result was Trump appointed 3 people that if he had still had to have 60 votes, he couldn't have gotten those 3 approved. And that and Reid, bragged about what he had done. Well, it turns on you sometimes. In politics, if you complain about something today, your party may be, in that same position a year from now. So, I've always said, don't complain or badmouth something, because you may find yourself in a similar position sometime.
I had to find videos of leaders of the Democratic Party from the last 15 years saying that they need to enforce immigration.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you can find that. It's all of them.
President Obama, he was saying we've got to enforce it, and we've got to keep people out. he was returning people. But I think the Biden advisors made that decision and sold him on it. And they went down a path that created a lot of problems for him.
A lot of problems.
A lot of problems. And they're sending people back. I noticed the senator from Maryland went down to visit a guy
Garcia.
Yeah, and I was amazed that how many times you've been to a prison in Maryland to visit somebody, and I just don't see how that helps the Democrats improve themselves by hammering on Republicans for returning convicted felons or convicted people that had some type of crime, misdemeanor or felon.
Or gang affiliation.
Yeah, if they were in a gang, and you send them back. And politics has changed. I noticed Chief Justice Roberts said something the other day that was real political, and I want to say, you're a judge. Don't do that. You're a judge. Don't be getting involved in the fray. Don't read the paper. Stay out of that stuff and render your decisions. So, we see what happens. But it was Mar-a-Lago's really a beautiful place. They complained that Trump had it listed for more than $18 million. I guarantee you, $18 million wouldn't buy the grass, the swimming pool. It's a nice place.
It's a resort, right?
Yeah, it's a resort, and he bought it at the right time at the right place, and he had. I don't know what's going to happen on this lawsuit, but I also wonder about a new criminal case has been opened on the Attorney General of New York, and she was giving misleading information on a loan application. That's what she was after him, giving misleading information, she claimed, on a loan to a bank. No one, I don't know of anyone that's ever been prosecuted on that other than Trump, that had, they don't get prosecuted unless the loan goes in default, and then they find out about it and they start looking at it. But when the feds open a file on you, they look at everything. So I don't know what will happen in that case in New York. Lots happening in Washington and Austin. In Austin, you're in the last 3 weeks of the legislative session, and everybody's concerned about what bill's going to pass and what bill's not going to make it, and what there'll be. There's always a bunch of bills that they don't get voted down. They just don't make it out the door. And that happens. And near the end, people start trying to amend other bills. I think back to John Whitmire, the mayor of Houston. He was a young state representative when I was state senator, and he was trying to outlaw pay toilets. That you shouldn't. There used to be you had to put a quarter in.
Yeah.
Pay toilet to be able to go to the bathroom. And there every once in a while you'd go in the restroom. Somebody said, "You got change for $1." You got any quarters? And the bill got killed, and so he was looking at trying to amend it. And they had amusement machines. An amusement machine be like a jukebox.
Oh, okay.
And so Whitmire, being smart and young and great, he put an amendment on the Amusement Machine Act that Senator Ron Clower was carrying. But when it got over the House, he put an amendment on it that classified pay toilets as an amusement machine and outlawed them. And Clower was all upset about it. He sat close to me. I said, "What's bothering you?" And he told me, and he said, "Whitmire put an amendment on my amusement machine act and classified pay toilets amusement machine. I outlawed them. Hijacking my bill. That's what they call it. Somebody hijack your bill and put amendment on that might be favorable. Another thing that happens near the end of a legislative session, there'll be points of order that come up, and that people start trying to kill bills or slow things down by raising a point of order. Parliamentarian has a tough job, and a speaker will always have a parliamentarian that's pretty loyal, but they'll follow the rules, and it makes for exciting. There'll be during a legislative session near the end. There's always a lot of stories coming about certain bills that didn't make it and how they got caught up.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any or recall anybody in particular that was really good at getting a bill killed? Like that was their thing?
I tell you, one of the greatest was Jim Nugent, and he was state representative from Kerrville, and he would always have a point of order, and they called him the Snake because he'd go back to the back mic and say, Mr. Speaker, I have a point of order. And when Nugent was doing it, you need to really pay attention because he was serious, and he would kill a lot of bills. He was known for that. And Ron Wilson from Houston also did that a lot. And in the House, that happened. In the Senate, they suspend the rules, and so if you can get your 2/3 or almost 2/3 vote, it's a different deal. It's a lot easier to get something done. But in the House, they have those rules, and somebody, they call a point of order, and you better hope that there are people in Austin that make a living by reading bills and pointing out what might be a point of order, what might not. I've hired them before.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, and you just say, is there something wrong in this bill that might be a point of order? And,
give us an example? Like what do you mean point of order? What for those?
Well, that the bill was too broad, or it all kinds of things, or it was a self-interest bill that had to do with something that was very narrow. And there's all kinds of little things can come up that somebody object to, and that may knock the bill off, and you'll have to wait 2 years and bring it back.
Oh, wow.
Either that, or you got to go to the governor, and if he's calling a special session, you got to beg him to put it in special session. But most governors, Governor Abbott's not one to do a lot of that.
Is there going to be a special session this?
I don't think so, but if they kill certain bills. Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor, he's said there's certain things that he had asked the governor to call special session on. Now, if push comes to shove and they don't get the spending, the appropriations bill passed, they'll have to have a special session. Right. And
because they have to get that done.
Yeah,
right?
They have to get that done.
Right.
And the fiscal year runs out the end of August. So starting, September 1, you got a new year to start. One other thing I wanted to mention, there's several little things that came up, I thought, that I read this week in the paper. One was a couple got arrested in Florida, and they were having sex in their car, and they were blocking the driveway to the police station. Now, you talking about stupid criminals, they could have a deal called very stupid criminals. And they were blocking driveway. I guess they were like, wonder how we got caught. what happened there? And there was a lawsuit in England I saw last week. A woman got $40,000 from her company, and the company had a questionnaire you filled out, and they from Star Wars. Yeah. You can tell I wasn't a big fan. In Star Wars, they'd say who you were, and this woman didn't fill out her form. Somebody filled it out for her, and at the company meeting when they were talking about who you were, she was classified as Darth Vader. and she sued him and got $40,000
Really?
for that. Yeah, I'd probably figure out if we could move on down the road without her.
Yeah.
A little sensitive there, and that's not real good. Also, there was a cat jumping contest, and the cat that won jumped 8 feet. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
And I wonder what they touched that cat with before. and then also this last week there was, I think it was in Ohio, a cat died that was 38 years and 3 days old, and it was the longest surviving cat, longest living cat of all time. One study that came out on what you would do for a family member, and it was said 39% would donate a body part to a family member if need be. But 82% said they'd share, if they won the lottery, they'd share some of that with a family member. And 53% said they'd stand in line at DMV to get the driver's license for a family member.
Oh, I'm not doing that.
And that's, it's almost, you want to say, hey, you knew what to do, or, you could have gotten in there. But I thought it was like, it starts out 82% would share in winning the lottery. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to donating a body part, it goes down to 39%. Hell, I like old cousin so-and-so, but, I might give him a little lottery, but I'm not going to give him a kidney. And that's, I thought that was pretty funny.
You want to remind everyone of the saying of the day?
To break a record, you first must believe you can break the record. Wes Kitley.
Good stuff. We encourage you to share this podcast on your social media. Just copy and paste the link and post it and get the word out. And we'll do it again next week.
Thank you.